Welcome to LIM YouTube channel, where we unravel the mysteries of macroeconomics. It's a bit like being a detective, but instead of searching for fingerprints, we're analyzing numbers and curves. Today, we're about to embark on a journey into the heart of economic analysis. It's a place where the forces of supply and demand converge in an intricate dance of numbers and curves. If economics were a party, these two would be the couple that owns the dance floor. To understand this economic dance-off, we need to grasp two key concepts: aggregate demand and aggregate supply. These are not just twins of economics, they're like the Fred and Ginger of the economic world, showing us the total demand and supply of goods and services in an economy. They help us understand why we have booms that make us feel like a millionaire on a shopping spree, and busts that feel like looking into an empty fridge after a long day at work. They're the lens through which we see how an economy functions, like economic spectacles, if you will. At the heart of economic activity is aggregate demand, representing the total demand for goods and services in an economy. So buckle up and get ready for the ride. And remember, economics, the only field where having lots of demand on your supply is actually a good thing. The mystery of aggregate demand and supply awaits. Taking a closer look at the short run, we arrive at the short-run aggregate supply (SRAS) curve, a pivotal player in the complex game of economics. This curve efficiently illustrates the crucial relationship between the collective price level and the volume of goods and services that companies are ready and capable to supply. Think of it as a balancing act on a seesaw. On one side, we have the total price level, and on the opposite, the volume of goods and services. As the price level ascends, companies are encouraged to ramp up their production, resulting in an increased quantity of goods and services. In contrast, if the price level descends, production becomes less profitable, triggering a decrease in the quantity of goods and services. However, the plot thickens. This relationship holds firm only when input prices remain static. In the dynamic world of economics, input prices can vary. When this occurs, it prompts our SRS curve to shift. Now let's delve deeper into the interaction between aggregate demand, AD, and the short-run aggregate supply. Whenever AD shifts, it impacts the SRAS. For instance, if AD rises unexpectedly, it outstrips the SRAS, causing prices to escalate and firms to hire more workers, increasing output. Conversely, if AD declines, it can lead to an excess supply, causing prices to drop and cutbacks in production. On the other hand, changes in SRAS can significantly impact the AD as well. If the SRAS decreases due to factors such as a rise in input prices or wages, it can lead to cost-push inflation where higher costs are passed on to consumers, thus lowering the AD. It's this intricate dance between aggregate demand and short-run aggregate supply that determines the rhythm of overall economic activity. Changes in either can lead to fluctuations in output and prices, which in turn drive the rising and falling tides of the business cycle. Now let's shift our focus to the long run. In the realm of macroeconomics, the long run refers to a period where all inputs in the production process can be varied. This is where we meet the long-run aggregate supply curve, or LRAS. The LRAS curve represents an economy's maximum sustainable output. Assuming full employment of resources, it's a vertical line on our graph indicating that, in the long run, output is not influenced by the price level. Price changes may cause short-term fluctuations in supply, but in the long run, they have no impact on the total output of an economy. So, what does influence the LRAS? It's determined by the real factors of production, such as technology, the size and skills of the labor force, and the quantity and quality of capital. For instance, advancements in technology can increase productivity, thus shifting the LRAS curve to the right, indicating higher potential output. It's determined by factors like technology, labor force, and capital. In the short run, the equilibrium is where aggregate demand meets short-run aggregate supply. Picture a bustling marketplace with buyers and sellers haggling over prices. In this scenario, the equilibrium price, or the market clearing price, is the point where the willingness of consumers to buy matches the willingness of producers to sell. The same principle applies to the broader economy. In the short run, the quantity of goods and services that firms are willing to produce at a given price level intersects with the total demand for those goods and services, creating what we call the short-run equilibrium. Now let's imagine we've fast-forwarded into the future. In the long run, all inputs in the production process are variable, and firms can adjust their production levels in response to economic conditions. The long-run aggregate supply represents the economy's maximum sustainable output, given its technology, labor force, and capital stock. So what happens in the long run? Well, prices are flexible and can adjust to changes in demand or supply. If demand exceeds supply, prices rise, nudging firms to produce more and consumers to buy less, until we reach a new equilibrium. Conversely, if supply exceeds demand, prices fall, prompting firms to cut back production and consumers to buy more. This process continues until the economy reaches an equilibrium where the aggregate demand aligns with both short-run and long-run aggregate supply. At this point, the economy is producing at its full employment level of output, where all available resources are effectively utilized. This long-run equilibrium represents a state of balance with stable prices and sustainable output. It's like a calm sea after the storm, where the waves of demand and supply have settled into a harmonious rhythm. In the long run, the economy seeks equilibrium where aggregate demand aligns with both short-run and long-run aggregate supply. Shocks, whether demand-driven or supply-driven, can impact the economy differently in the short and long run. This is where the rubber meets the road in our journey of economic understanding. Let's start by imagining an unexpected event, a shock, if you will, that suddenly increases or decreases demand for goods and services. This could be anything from an unforeseen technological breakthrough to a sudden shift in consumer behavior. In the short run, a demand shock can cause quite a stir. If demand increases, businesses scramble to meet it, often raising prices in the process. If demand decreases, however, businesses might be left with unsold inventory, prompting a drop in prices. Either way, the short run sees fluctuations in both output and price levels. Supply shocks, on the other hand, stem from sudden changes in the ability to produce goods and services. Think natural disasters disrupting production, or a sudden spike in the price of raw materials. In the short run, these shocks can lead to a mismatch between what consumers want and what firms can deliver, causing prices to swing and output to waver. Now, let's consider the long run. It's a bit like looking at the economy through a wide-angle lens, where we see the bigger picture. Here, the economy has time to adjust and adapt to shocks. In the face of a demand shock, businesses can adjust their production levels, and consumers can modify their spending habits. Supply shocks, however, can have more lasting impacts. If a shock reduces the economy's productive capacity, it could potentially lower the long-run rate of output. So, why is understanding these dynamics important? Well, for policymakers and analysts, it's like being handed a roadmap to navigate the economy. By understanding how shocks impact the economy in the short and the long run, they can formulate policies and strategies to mitigate negative effects and capitalize on positive ones. In essence, they can help steer the economy through the choppy waters of change. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for policymakers and analysts. After all, in the grand scheme of things, it's not just about surviving the shocks. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Aggregate demand and aggregate supply are like puzzle pieces that fit together to shape the economic landscape. They dictate the rhythm of an economy, from the ebb and flow of the business cycle to the response to shocks. These two concepts illuminate the intricate dance of consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports, underpinning the total demand for goods and services. They also unveil the supply side, exploring how firms respond in the short run and what determines the maximum sustainable output in the long run. The equilibrium in both the short and long run is where these puzzle pieces fit together, providing a snapshot of the economy at any given time. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for policymakers, analysts, and students of economics alike. As we continue to unravel mysteries of macroeconomics, Our next video will delve deeper into the fascinating world of economic indicators. Stay tuned for more insights.